Where do you draw the line between yourself and others? If we are all connected, how would you see the world differently? Perhaps it will be a world filled with more kindness, a world where we feel a deeper sense of peace and security. Hello everyone. Today we will delve into a Japanese Buddhist term called Engi. In our daily lives, we unconsciously separate ourselves from others, sometimes comparing, sometimes competing. Thinking I am me and they are them can sometimes lead to conflict and stress. However, in Buddhist teachings, there is a fundamental principle that says everything exists in connection with everything else. And this is what we call Engi. When we deeply understand Engi, it is often said we could reduce stress and sufferings in our relationships, and even transform the way we live. Moreover, this concept is deeply connected to Zen practice. Today, we will explore the foundation of Engi, its connection to Zen, and why embracing this perspective is so important in modern society. On this channel, we delve into the philosophy of Zen, its history, and notable figures. If you find this video interesting, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe to this channel before you lose track of which channel it is. So now, let's get started. In modern Japan, the word Engi is often used to refer to good or bad fortune. For example, when we talk about something being lucky or unlucky. However, in its original Buddhist meaning, Engi is not about luck. Rather, it describes a profound universal law. Everything exists through connections. To explain it further, Buddhist teachings state, all things arise through the combination of causes and conditions. In other words, nothing exists independently. Everything is interconnected. We often perceive things as separate and independent, like this is this and that is that. But in reality, everything is intertwined, influencing and shaping one another. As an example, let's think about how you ended up watching this video. First, the existing of YouTube as a platform. Second, the development of internet. Third, my decision to create this video. And fourth, your interest in this topic and the fact that you clicked the play button. All of these have come together to create this very moment. If one of these elements had been different, you wouldn't be watching it right now. And this is the law of Engi. To make this concept even clearer, let's imagine a single flower. A flower doesn't exist by itself. It only blooms when the seed is combined with the right conditions, such as soil, water, sunlight, and air. Now imagine, what if there is no soil? What if there was no water? And what if the sun never shined? Without these interconnected conditions, the flower would not bloom. Let's go deeper now. So, how does this concept apply to our relationships? Let's say you had an argument with someone. you might think the person is at fault. But if we pause and reflect, we can see that many unseen factors contributed to the moment. For example, the other person's mood and the stress they might have been carrying on the day, the words you chose to say, the history of your relationship, the environment and circumstances at the time. If any one of these conditions had been different, perhaps the argument wouldn't happen. This is why conflicts do not arise from a single cause. Everything happens as a result of interactions. In other words, we tend to separate ourselves from others in our thinking, but in reality, everything exists within the flow of these connections. By adopting this perspective, rather than placing all the blame on others, we can reflect on how we ourselves are involved within the flow of those connections. This shift in perspective allows us to live with greater compassion and flexibility in our relationships. Now, let's consider this. We might often fall into saying, I am me and you are you. But is it really true? We are here in this moment because of countless interwoven causes and conditions. From this perspective, the boundary between self and others becomes blurred. What if caring for others meant, in the long run, caring for ourselves? What if all the kindness you show to others eventually come back to you in a way you never expected? And what if neglecting or harming others ultimately created suffering for ourselves? When we truly grasp the concept of Engi, we realize that there's no need to constantly compare or compete. Instead, we can focus on cultivating harmony, both within ourselves and with those around us. Up to this point, we've been discussing the ancient Buddhist philosophy of Engi, and as Buddhism widely spread in Asia, this concept greatly influenced the teachings of Zen, which later developed as one of Buddhist sect and philosophy. For example, in zazen, sitting quietly, regulating the breath, and calming the mind. Through this simple practice, we can experience Engi. At first, during zazen, our awareness is drawn to our own breath and posture. But gradually, the boundary between self and surroundings becomes blurred, and we are left with a sense of simply existing. We feel the airflow, hear the chirping of birds, and sense the wind touching our skin. There comes a moment when we realize that we are not separate from environment, but an integral part of it. This moment is an experience of Engi. If you wish to feel Engi, I recommend you to start from practicing zazen, perhaps in a simple and quiet environment. In the beginning, simply sitting and focusing on your breath is enough. Over time, your awareness of the present moment deepens, and you may begin to feel that you are part of the world, and the world is a part of you. This is how Engi transitions from the mere knowledge to direct Zen practice. So far, we have explored what Engi is and how it can be experienced through Zen practice. Now, let's think about how can we apply this concept in our modern lives? In today's world, individual achievement is often emphasized, and we tend to see ourselves as separate from others. Therefore, in the workplace, we often feel pressured to outperform others in a competitive society. On social media, we may compare ourselves to others and worry, am I falling behind? However, if we continue thinking this way, we trap ourselves in a cycle of pressure. I must always prove myself, or I have to win against others. Over time, this mindset can become overwhelming and exhausting. But when we shift to the perspective of Engi, the way we see the world begins to change. Imagine a situation where a colleague is recognized and praised by your manager. You might think they are being valued more than me, and I need to produce better results too. However, from the lens of Engi, you can recognize that their success is not solely due to their individual efforts, but also because of the conditions and relationships that supported them. Similarly, your current situation is also the result of various connections and conditions that have shaped your path. When you see it this way, the urge to compete and compare with others loses its significance. Instead, you may feel at peace, realizing each person follows their own unique path, shaped by different connections. So I should simply focus on walking my own. Let's apply Engi to human relationships as well. Human relationships are another area where we often struggle. We might think, I don't get along with this person, or why are they acting this way? At times, we may even criticize or judge others harshly. But here too, Engi can offer a new perspective. A person's behavior is not just their own control. It's shaped by countless factors. Their past experiences, their mood that day, their cultural and social background. If their circumstances were different, their behavior towards you might change as well. This means that rather than labeling someone based on a single encounter, we can try to look beyond their actions and consider the conditions that influence them. And what if we respond with kindness instead? That kindness, through the web of relationships, may eventually find its way back to us. Showing kindness to others ultimately means showing kindness to yourself. Because in a world where everything is interconnected, the compassion we give will return to us. By embracing this perspective, we can transform our relationships and way of life into something more peaceful and compassionate. Changing the topic slightly, in recent years, the nation-first ideology has been gaining strength worldwide. However, if we consider this through the lens of Engi, even if a country benefits in the short term, in the long run, the natural balancing force of Engi may come into play. The more we build barriers, the more distortions those barriers create, and eventually, those effects will return to us. In this case, rather than separating ourselves with thoughts like, I am me and they are them, shouldn't we think according to the principle of I equal others in line with Engi, supporting one another as we live our lives. If this awareness spreads, I believe we can create a better society. I believe there's no need to accomplish something huge, but instead, perhaps what matters most is gradually incorporating the principles of Engi into our daily lives in small ways. For example, being just a little kinder to someone than usual. Taking a moment to consider the background of another person's actions. These small actions, accumulated over time, will eventually bring warmth not only to ourselves, but to society as a whole. Now, let's take a moment to reflect. If you live with an awareness of Engi, how would your human relationships and world perspectives change? What small action can you take today to practice Engi in your life? It would be great to hear your thoughts in the comments. That is all for today. How was it? That was thought-provoking, wasn't it? So as always, if you find this video interesting, please do not forget to like and subscribe to this channel before you lose track of which channel it is. Also, feel free to share your thoughts and messages in the comments section. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.